Dr. Randall, the Soul Doctor, author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, shares her 40 years of experience as a cross-cultural practitioner, medical futurist, and expert in 20 different modalities of healing, along with amazing interviews with some of the leading minds in medicine and big thinkers in all walks of life. The stories of our lives are the woven energies of our soul's paths. They feed and ignite the spiritual light that nourishes the universal soul, the one mind, the cosmic consciousness where we all come together. This podcast is going to be a deep dive into the personal stories of people who have made significant contributions to the planet. What formed them? What moved them to become these leaders and innovators that inspire us so? Hi, Pam.
Hi, Dr. Randall. Good to see you.
Oh, it's so great to see you. I miss you. We haven't seen each other. I mean, I feel like I'm always connected to you, but I don't.
100%.
We used to get together more, I guess.
Well, you keep me well, so I don't need office visits, but we should do some more socializing.
Awesome. I'm up for that. I'm totally up for that. And your husband, too. You know, he's so happy he's well as well. So it's so good to have you on. I've known you for years and I've watched you develop, and I'm very impressed with you and your work and what you're doing with people. Pam's earned a wide recognition and accolades from senior colleagues, as well as from Richard Bandler, who was her teacher and the co-developer of NLP, who she trained with. And he's just an amazing person, I understand from her, and quite a leader and teacher. She trains with him regularly. And as a licensed NLP master and practitioner and trainer, Pam brings great dedication and warmth and humor to empowering each person she partners to achieve their full potential of life. This is what she says: fun, joy, and clarity is what brings your soul to life from within. I love that. Mm-hmm. And she feels her work gives people access to their own power and to their own wisdom. And how long you've been doing this now, Pam?
22 years.
Oh, wow. That's so hard to believe. I've known you that whole time. Okay. And she also holds advanced certifications in all Bandler technologies, including persuasion engineering, design human engineering, neurohypnotic repatterning, and hypnosis as an application to NLP. She also owns or has a license to be a hypnotherapy trainer and has a school of hypnotherapy, which I didn't even know that about you. That's amazing. She's a matchmaker, and she's a Bashert dating coach and matchmaker with NLP. She's earned dual Bachelors of Arts degrees in philosophy and comparative religions. She's also studied biology and marketing at a collegiate level. Her extensive knowledge in communications, the mind, and healing, Pam helps others achieve limitless outcomes on multidimensional levels of health, wellness, and success in every area of their lives. I love that. Pam maintains an active membership in the Society of Neurolinguistic Programming with Richard Bandler and the International Society of NLP. Well, congratulations on all that, Pam.
Thank you.
I knew you were on that journey, but that's more than I ever knew. That's fabulous. Mm-hmm. So how is that all going for you? Is it going well?
It's going very well. I think that one of the reasons that NLP is so powerful is that we learn it context-free. So the principles of communication to ourselves and to others apply whether I'm helping someone in a business setting to remove behaviors like procrastination in business, or whether I'm helping someone match with someone more compatible with their own behaviors, or whether I'm helping someone that has been to every other type of person out there with PTSD or obsessive compulsive disorder, whether it's physical or emotional. It just applies in every context. I haven't met a context yet that the communication of NLP can't help someone alleviate what limits them and go past into what they actually want to achieve with something.
Very nice. Very nice. So when did you know you wanted to get into this kind of healing, or when did you know you wanted to be a healer?
I was always a different kind of little girl, and I just knew things. And I just was blessed to come here in this life knowing that that was a good thing. And fast forward into my early 30s, I was very sick. And I had what was deemed at the time chronic fatigue immune dysfunction. And I traveled up and down the coast of California trying to get relief. And I pretty much determined I was on my own. And so there were times that I was very non-functional, bedridden, fatigued beyond belief. And I read a book about the subject of mind mapping. And that is putting into a pictorial, whole brain thinking what we generally do in a linear outline. And that really appealed to my visual sense of learning, although I didn't know it at the time. And in that book mentioned NLP. And the words of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, just began to infuse inside my body and bring a curiosity that I couldn't explain. And I began to look into NLP. And like many people still today, NLP is not a government-regulated field, nor should it be, Richard Bandler believes, because we can do things that licensed psychotherapists or other healers, cognitive behavioral therapists, can't really do. Nothing unethical, nothing harmful, but create some limitations in getting people to communicate at the other than conscious level. So began looking into it and found that I had no clue what people were talking about. And that really made me curious. How could I, an educated woman with a college degree, have no clue what these people are telling me? It was just laden with jargon about modalities and things like collapsing anchors. And so I kept making phone calls, and I made a phone call to someone who actually did what he was supposed to do, which is use NLP to communicate in the best, most effective way to each individual person. This is what goes wrong in school. Everyone can learn. We just all learn differently. And so therein lies sort of the basic principle of NLP, that we really need to be communicating to each individual person and discover how they learn and allow their unconscious mind to give us the signals and be trained to read those signals and parrot back in the manner that will be most effective to them. So this gentleman was amazing, and I really had no better understanding of what NLP was, but I know I liked him and I felt that I trusted him. And I was off work, non-functional with chronic fatigue dysfunction, and off I went to get training, and that was all she wrote. I sat in probably the second day of class and said, oh, this is big. This applies to everything. This explains why I never was able to X, Y, or Z. This explains why I'm so good at ABC. This explains why people don't understand when I X, Y, Z. And then I just kept going with advanced training. And when I finished my first training, I went to Canada to get it. And what I wanted most was to be well. And I hadn't met you at the time, and no physician was able to help. I was on a slew of medications. I was on experimental injections every day. A nurse came to my house just to keep me kind of functional. And so I said, okay, so let me use what I learned. And again, we learn this context free. So there are no protocols, except that we've learned it at the other than conscious level. And if we stayed out of the way of a good trainer, then the skills and knowing where to go, what question to ask next, just begins to bubble up. Mm-hmm. So I said, I want to be well. Let's see if I can use this for that. And I spent 3 nights relaxing in a bubble bath and using my hypnotic language that you learn in NLP, because we really communicate at both a conscious and unconscious level. So I did some light trance work on myself the first night, and I said, well, do I feel any different? Nah. But I learned to practice what I was taught. And we say with NLP, now that I'm a trainer of NLP, I want my students to jump in with both feet right away, so that the neurology that we've been tickling and building begins to grow wider and deeper neural pathways. And we really can create our own reality by our thoughts and our words.
Yes.
The way that we do it is we really do change our neurology. Now, 40 years ago, when Richard Bandler began this field, we didn't have the benefit of MRI to see people's neural pathways changing. So I thought, well, I'm at least practicing what I've been taught. I'm going to do this again tomorrow night. The second night, I learned to do deeper trance work, and I learned to begin to apply questions about my health to, lawyers call these leading questions. What time do you think you returned home? Presupposing that you were out and you returned home. So leading questions, I began to ask and begin to communicate inside me to myself. And I felt like I was getting someplace, but didn't necessarily feel well. And the third night, I began what I call my healing by using NLP. And I asked myself, where did this question come from? It came from my training, but you also have to think consciously to use the unconscious process. And in these 3 nights, I learned that, wow, indeed, it works. Once I realized this works, I asked my cells, when were you optimally well? And what do you need to do in your own infinite wisdom, dear cells, to return me to that state at my current age, right? Because this is a little bit about how age regression works. You can bring somebody back in time, but I don't want to come out behaving like a 13-year-old. And what got revealed to me from my unconscious process was I began to see a movie in my mind. We all see movies. Sometimes those are the things that terrify us, and people don't know that they're recreating their own fears every time they watch a scary movie of them seeing a spider. And so I saw this movie in my mind I was about 12 years old. I was on summer vacation in Chicago with my grandmother, and I wanted to teach myself to ride a bicycle hands-free, like the big kids. And you find your center of balance, and I could see this movie as if I was in it. So I was fully associated into it, we'd say in NLP terms. And my hair was long and it was blowing in the wind, and I felt so vibrantly healthy and well. And I asked my cells, to gently release anything that was preventing that level of wellness in a gentle way, and to recreate any chemistry they needed, and to keep me at my mature age that I was. And, it was all an experiment to me. I was just using what I thought might work and allowing the unconscious process to guide me. And I got out of the bath and I said, okay, do I feel better? I'm not a patient woman by nature. Nah. I went to sleep, but the next morning I woke up vibrant. Mm-hmm. Mornings previously were my worst time, feeling like I had a hangover every morning. And I woke up, boing, and I went, whoa, something feels different in me. And I couldn't wait to get out of bed. And Madeleine, when I stood up, it felt like heavy bricks fell inside my body all the way down to the ground. And I knew to the core of my being that was illness that dropped out of me. How? I didn't really care. I was so grateful. But then a moment of truth hit. And this is why we say part of the work in NLP is finding the positive intent. There is a positive intent in every behavior and every situation we have. Now, prior to this, you couldn't have possibly convinced an intelligent woman that there was anything positive about having this illness. I had had it for 17 years at that time. And yet there I was standing, looking down at what I was absolutely sure was illness and wondering, Pam, step out of this. And I was almost frozen. And I didn't talk about this for 5 years because I felt shame about it. For the first time in my life, I knew what shame was, which is a good resource to have because you can then recognize it in other people. And so I said, what am I doing here? And what I realized was, however it came, the positive intent, whether it came from being so ill for so many years and so many people expressing concern, my own mother, for the first time looking like she really cared for me in a loving, motherly way, all that was going to go away. And I thought, I felt shame that I even had such a thought. I'd been begging God to make me well. I had to face that. And thank goodness for my training, because it allowed me to ask again another productive question. I asked, well, Pam, so how do you want to define yourself? By what you cannot do because you're sick and people, they feel bad for you? Or by what you can do for yourself in the world? And I went, beautiful. Oh, heck yeah. Mm-hmm. And I stepped out of it and I ran outside and I ran on my lawn. And I, knock on wood, as my grandmother would say, have been pretty well ever since. No symptoms ever returned. Nice. Threw away all my meds. And I went, okay, there's something to this NLP. And I want to be good at it. Yeah. I say there's a gift in every illness. And that's really hard for people to take sometimes. But maybe with NLP, it's easier to get people to get it. But I really believe that. And if you can find that gift, it heals you. And you did. Fantastic. I love it. So I just then applied those skills to every context of my clients that came to my front door. Beautiful, beautiful. So maybe you can back up a little bit and unpack for us. I know NLP is pretty complicated and you won't be able to describe it all, but I know there's different ways that people learn, and that's kind of a big part of it. Could you maybe sort of nuggetize that for my guests? Sure. So we as human beings primarily learn through our 5 senses. What we see, what we hear, what we feel externally and internally in our gut, what we taste and smell. We do have other senses, but we don't have names for them yet. So primarily in this physical plane, we learn through our five senses. And different people have the three major dominant senses: our visual, our auditory, and our kinesthetic, or our feeling sense, are the primary ways that we learn. And different people have different dominance in those. And so, for example, if let's take a school setting, why are we missing teaching so many kids? Because teachers are taught the content of what to teach, but not so much the process of teaching. So we really need to identify by language, both verbal and nonverbal, what student A sitting in front of me, how they learn. And they will tell us, people will tell you everything you need to know about the way their particular brain codes, processes, and remembers information. That's what NLP training is. So maybe you have a teacher who's primarily learns auditorily. She can read and absorb information, and yet she's teaching a student who feels like it's a foreign language. Draw me some pictures about what you're talking about on the board. Bring me into the language that will create pictures in my mind of the tree had a vibrant green moss on it with a texture. When you lead people to their dominant trait, they go, oh, I understand that. And so we're missing a lot of kids. And so how people have their problem, when I get my clients, that's my main job. I'm not an expert in any problem whatsoever, nor do I want to be. I'm an expert in helping that client reveal to me through their conscious and unconscious process how they specifically have their problem, so then I can re-engineer a way out of it and give them, allow them to replace the positive intent with something that's more healthy. So take eating disorders, for example. I've had a bunch of clients with all kinds of eating disorders, and maybe their positive intent, everyone is different. Maybe their positive intent was to be thin, and the unconscious mind pulled out. The unconscious mind is brilliant at creating remedies for people. It just creates easy remedies that may not be healthy for the person. That's why we want to learn to control our neurology so that our neurology doesn't control us. Mm-hmm. So the unconscious mind says, well, here's a way you can be thin. Just vomit up everything you eat. Now, the person, of course, if they were consciously aware of that, they would say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But this communicator, our unconscious mind, is really the more powerful mind. And it gives us information when we're slightly in a hypnotic state, like driving, highway hypnosis, and we don't really pay attention, we're unaware, and then this behavior starts. So really the job is to help the person allow the unconscious mind to say, like a negotiation, under what conditions would you give up vomiting to be thin in favor of diet and exercise and clean living and healthy relationships? What are the conditions you are charging me with, the individual, to do it differently? And everyone has conditions. So you can get anyone to give up anything for a period of time, but it won't be lasting unless we meet the conditions that positive intent created the problem from.
Right. And you have to get rid of those thought viruses like you did when you got the bricks to fall down, because everything you say and think, your brainstem hears and remembers.
And it acts on.
Exactly.
Things. It's, while it's a more powerful mind, the unconscious mind, I affectionately refer to it as the less intellectual mind. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't care about the values of wellness versus illness, good versus bad, difficult versus easy. It just gives a remedy, and we think we have no way out of it. Well, I just woke up feeling depressed. No, you have to do something in your mind to create the conditions to be depressed. And if we can teach people, so part of what I do is run trainings, 9-day trainings, to teach the body of work that people could apply for themselves. Or I get clients where I'm not teaching them what to do, but I'm reprogramming their mind so that they can no longer access how they used to do it. I kind of call it juggling. I verbally read their signals that they're telling me from their unconscious process. I pull out the codes of information that they use to create their problem, juggle them outside in a new configuration. We'll call that the reprogramming, and then install a better strategy back into them. In essence, what that's doing is strengthening a new neural pathway that we've built on how to do it, so that becomes the default neural pathway. And then I do what I call future pacing, which would be like running them through the new way of doing things for the next 5 years in about 20 seconds. So it literally will grow a new neural pathway, and that will become the dominant default neural pathway. So they can't do it the old way anymore because that neural pathway is weaker. It kind of went dormant.
Awesome. So tell us an anecdote, like one of your most impressive patients that you, I guess you don't call them patients, clients that you dealt with that had, a recovery that was interesting.
Okay. So I think the first one that comes to mind is, I'll call her Jade. Came to me at about 27 years old. Her dad found me, and they had brought their sweet daughter to every type of healer possible, starting with psychologists, psychiatrists, cognitive behavioral therapists, pediatricians, tappers, soothsayers, all kinds. And he found out about me and was extremely skeptical, as many people are, because after all, who's heard of NLP? It's much more popular on the other continents than here in North America. And so we had a few conversations, and he goes, this sounds good. It's a bit pricey. I don't know. We've tried everything. What makes you think this will work? Are you an expert in what Jade had was obsessive compulsive disorder? From the time she was 8 to 27, at 8 years old, she just woke up and had a symptom of hand washing. And it grew, and that's the problem with obsessions and phobias. If not taken care of, again, the brain is learning how to do it, and the brain learns very quickly. And the more times we repeat the problem, the more default that behavior becomes. So they feel like, I can't stop. And they're right. So I said, I have an amazing track record, and I can't offer a guarantee. I can just tell you, I believe I can help. So they did come, and so she had obsessive compulsive disorder. She was washing her hands in excess of 400 to 500 times a day. She had quit college, managed to graduate. Along the way, she developed social anxiety because, how do you explain to all your friends why you have to jump up every, 8 minutes and go wash your hands again? Her hands were dry and bleeding and sore, and her life was so miserable. And she would hide in her bedroom, quit college, and was so depressed. She was on a lot of medication, which not sure how medicating a person to the point of sleepiness is going to ever help them be in touch with reality. So for 18 years, she'd had this problem. So she came the first day, NLP is best known for rapid behavioral change, rapid compared to other things that are out there. I typically work with people 1 to 3 sessions, sometimes more. And so she came the first session, and through the NLP techniques, one question I asked her was, okay, so I don't really need to know a lot about the background. We're not going to talk about, do you hate your sister, or, were you bitten by a dog and you got scared, or, do you not have a good relationship with your mother? Immaterial. I want to know what their brain is doing, how it's communicating to them that creates the codes of information to have the problem. And so I said, so if I want to have this hand washing problem, if I want to be so compelled that I cannot stop myself from jumping up, how do I have this problem? Where do I start? What's the first thing you do inside you, Jade? Now, consciously, if a person knew, they'd all be over their problems. But that question is a hypnotic question, and that answer can only be found by the client going inside and listening to their inner voice, seeing the pictures in their mind, or sensing something that happens to them that begins the process of the codes of information they're communicating to themselves. And she goes, oh, well, I don't know. And everything I do is hypnotic. I'm already working from my own trance. So just me gazing at somebody will allow them to relax so that they can go inside and communicate, because they have the golden key inside them. And so she said, oh, well, I say to myself, and I thought, aha, this is what starts that behavior. So I'm just listening, and I felt really excited inside because I thought, wow, this information's coming quickly. This could be the answer of how to get rid of it. And indeed, it turned out that it was. And she knew very well. She goes, well, I say to myself, your hands are dirty, go and wash them. And I said, okay. How do you say it? Because language matters. Intonality matters. There's a different piece of communication that we understand when someone says to themselves, I need to wash my hands, versus go and wash your hands. So I said, I want to know exactly how you say it. How do I sound just like you in your inner voice? And she goes, oh, I call that my OCD voice. And she slapped the back of her hand with her other hand, and she goes, it's emphatic, it's urgent, and it's commanding. And I said, let me hear it the way you hear it. And she said, your hands are dirty, go and wash them now. And so I sat back and I said, wow, you have quite good leadership abilities, don't you, dear? She said, huh? Now, if you can get people to laugh, that's where the space opens up inside them to begin to allow me to reprogram that. And I said, well, if you were a commander of an army platoon and you needed to keep your army safe and you needed them to obey you, that'd be exactly how to do it, wouldn't it? She goes, yeah, I guess so. So I said, okay. So that works every time, right? That's why we call it obsessive and compulsive behavior. That voice works every time. Now that we know that, we can use that voice to give a different command. And then I dropped her into a little deeper of a trance, still awake, and gave her a beautiful story that works at the other than conscious level. And I asked her unconscious mind to only give her truthful commands about her hands. That instead of your hands are dirty, go and wash them when you know they're clean, then you need to be truthful with yourself and say, your hands are perfectly clean. Go about your next task today, in that same commanding voice. And that was the day she never had obsessive compulsive disorder again.
Wow.
I saw her a few more times because we needed to deal then with the fallout from 18 years of having that behavior of developing social anxiety. And, she lost a lot of her confidence. And so I worked with her probably 3 more times. And it becomes such a default behavior that the next week she came back and I said, all right, well, we were in testing phase. How many times inappropriately did you wash your hands? I mean, we do need to wash our hands, but how many times were you? And she goes, oh, I don't know. I'm thinking, you don't know? You've had this compulsion for 18 years, 400 to 500 times a day? And she said, I guess I haven't been thinking about it. And so I brought her back in time, like, okay, you were here Wednesday. What happened Wednesday when you went home? Oh, I stopped at a restaurant because I was hungry. Did you go and wash your hands? And she says, no. And I said, would you have normally? Oh, yes. So that was a dramatic one. And I think the next, probably my most dramatic client, they seem to be getting, my clients get more intense problems as I get more skilled. I get challenged, like, oh boy, what am I going to do here? And that's what I love about my work, because I don't like repetition. If I had a practice filled with help me to stop smoking, and I had that for the last 22 years, I surely would have jumped to a different field. So I get something new each time. And even if I get 5 of the same clients in a row, how each of those 5 code their information is entirely different. So it's like a detective.
I get that.
Oh, just before the pandemic hit, my last client was both suicidal and homicidal. Now, I don't recommend anybody in NLP take a client like that, because that's beyond the scope of NLP. But she didn't come to me for that. That later got revealed, and now I'm in the middle of it. And really, most people's problems are not as severe as they believe they are. And so that young lady is now doing extremely well. And that young lady, number one, was living completely out of alignment and living in past trauma. Living with PTSD from any event in life, whether you or I would have PTSD from it, is immaterial. If they do, they do. And so when I work to bring her out of that trauma, one of the things that is really very powerful is many people have a miscommunication to themselves about how they experience time. The past, the present, the future, through time, in time, behind time. And so metaphorically and almost literally, when you ask someone, when you think about yesterday or a month ago, where is that in relation to where you're standing? Point to it. Again, that's a hypnotic question that is odd to the conscious mind, but the unconscious mind goes, oh, I know where that is. And if they go inside, they do get a sense of, oh, everything that happened in the past, that's right here in front of me. Well, of course, that's not good, because we as human beings are programmed and conditioned to see every mistake we have ever made, right? When we go to school, we get on our paper -3. We don't get +8. So we become accustomed to seeing what's wrong with ourselves or what we could do better. So if all of the mistakes we've ever made are energetically and metaphorically right in front of us, that's when I get clients that say, I'm stuck. I want to do so many things, but I'm just stuck. Is a clue to me that I maybe need to help them and reprogram how they're experiencing time by putting that behind them and allowing them to, I'll reprogram them so that they can keep the resources and learnings from the past, which are rich, but leave the feelings, the bad feelings behind and take only their good feelings from the happy times of their past. Now they have resources they can use. Oftentimes their present is in front of them. Many people who come to me with anxiety need nothing more than their present put back in them so that it's not out in front of them, because a person will describe, I feel like I'm always running to catch up with myself. That's a clue for me. Their experience of time has been jumbled up or misaligned. Or some people have had such traumatic things happen to them, they don't want to be in their bodies. And so when the present really becomes present, they're going to feel more. The good news is that now they have all their faculties to deal with it in a logical and healthy way. Because when a person is out of time, all of their five senses are diminished. So they're operating on 20, 30% less awareness. Now you add some medication onto that, how's anybody going to find themselves out of it?
For sure.
Yeah. So with this particular client, once we got her out of PTSD, rearranged her experience of time, and taught her how to set goals to achieve the things that she actually wants to achieve, and a little confidence boost that she actually has the competency to go do those things. It was really very, very heartwarming. It was my most difficult case and a little bit scary for me. Also a source of pride and just gratefulness that who else is she going to get? You know, she was institutionalized twice. And honestly, she was much smarter than her psychiatrist. And she goes, they don't know what to do with me. And I go, you're right. Neither do I, but we're going to find out. We'll figure it out.
Oh, that's just so fascinating and sounds so valuable. Do you work on telemed? Do you do Zoom or no, only in person? I have some people that need you, but they won't leave their houses. So it's hard to, yeah.
It is hard, and it's been hard on me as well. There's just way too much lost. It's not safe, no matter what anybody says. The hypnotic process is not safe because, you know, what wires together, fires together. So if I don't have complete command and control of what they're looking at, what they're listening to, then something could jump into their picture and, you know, their dog could walk by and now they're afraid of dogs and they don't know why at just the wrong time. So it's just not safe. It's not ethical and it's not effective, most importantly. So, yeah, I'm just starting back now. I had one client yesterday and I have another client coming in, but another thing is right now, we both have to be unmasked because, you know, they need to see my full facial expression, full body, and I need to see theirs because a change in tonality, skin tone, a change in color means something at the other than conscious level. And if half of that is covered up, it's like asking me to do my work blindfolded. So,
yeah. So how do people get a hold of you how can people get a hold of you and work with you?
There's a wealth of information on my website at nlpclarity.com. I can be reached by phone, 818-654-9660, and by email, nlp@nlpclarity.com.
And do you have a website?
Yes, nlpclarity.com.
Okay, perfect. So leave us now with a few pearls of wisdom, if you would.
I think the most important thing for people now is to engage back in life with some goals and to start looking forward. A very easy exercise to do is to bring your eyes up to eye level, because we access our feelings when we look down and to our right, or we access that inner voice of fear and doubt by looking down and to the left. So if people just raise their eyes up and look forward, moods will change. And when you look forward, it's important to have a mental vision, a mental mirage, if you will, of what are you looking forward to? What are your hopes and dreams? Match them up with your competencies. Check that your behaviors will sustain your competencies. So behaviors like motivation versus procrastination, behaviors of doubt versus surety. You know, you can be excellently competent in something, but if you can't sustain motivation, it's going to be a problem. That has to be changed. But if you look up and put in your field of vision a mental mirage of, I'm competent to help children learn to read better, and I'm going to monetize that perhaps by starting a little business where I put together a program. There's lots of ways to do online programs. And now you want to get very, very motivated to do that. And you just ask yourself, what have I been motivated by before? And what did I do inside my mind to sustain that motivation? And do that, do more of that. So I think people need to really set some goals. It's been a wonky couple of years to go back to dreaming and creativity and adopt a really strong belief that you are limitless for the most part.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Pam. You're just always so full of knowledge and pearls, and I just love you. You're brilliant.
Thank you for keeping us all healthy and well so I can be my Pamtastic self.
You're welcome. All right, let's talk soon, okay?
100%.
All right, honey. Bye-bye now. I'm Dr. Gail Randall, creator and host of Soul Stories. I just want to thank you for listening to my podcast. I recently got a notification from the International Podcast People, and I was astounded that so many countries are listening to my podcast in the category of alternative health. So thank you, and please continue to listen. I especially want to thank Egypt, Croatia, Japan, and Switzerland, also France and Ireland, because my numbers were quite high there. So keep up the good work and check out my Instagram at Dr. Gail Randall, and particularly check out my Instagram TV, where you can hear me talking about alternative medicine subjects and also see me. It's a very good show, and I think you'll like the subjects. It's on 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Friday, but it's recorded there, so you can find it there anytime you look. Okay, thanks again. I love you guys. This is Dr. Gail Randall from Soul Stories, and author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet. I want to thank Saltology, our sponsor, at bathsalt.com, which fits perfectly into my medicine bag as it, like me, calls upon the ancient wisdom and modern technology to heal, especially with the stresses and ills of our modern times. The Bokek brand uses organic salts combined with organic essential oils sourced from ancient Egypt to provide a perfect remedy for your bathing ritual and healing from modern stresses. The Relief RX brand is a unique one-of-a-kind healing salt that uses organic CBD treated with a unique emulsification process to create nanoparticles which easily enter the skin to most effectively heal and relieve aching muscles and joints. Whether from chronic inflammation or just a rough workout, this is the perfect healing bath, especially when you add the organic essential oils of neroli, lavender, eucalyptus, or grapefruit. Your body, mind, and soul will be lifted and soothed like never before. Go now to bathsalt.com. I also want to give special thanks to Larry Antonino and Agora Borealis Recording Studio for music and score, and also to closetotheearth.com for IT and computer assistance.